So I'm going to present to you guys something that is going to be completely contradictory to everything you've pretty much been told. In my last couple videos, I talked about, the fact that we live in an inverted reality. It seems like we live in this dream world. The movie The Matrix talked about it. That's pretty much what it is that we live in some sort of dream world, some kind of artificial reality, and we see it every day around us. There's artificial food, artificial clothes, artificial everything. Everything is fake. The news is fake. The TV shows are fake. Everything is a joke. Everything is fake. And it's because we live in an inverted reality. There's a term that says "as above, so below," and that's basically the definition is in those words. Above, there's something else going on, and the reflection of what's going on above that is the below, which is where we're at. Earth, in terms of the four elements, is the lowest element. Hell is in the lowest region. It would make sense that only I would argue the fact that, we're living in some sort of level of hell. I know that sounds out there, but just bear with me. So what I'm going to explain to you is that what I'm going to say is going to be very contradictory, and I know I'm going to get a lot of people disagreeing, and that's fine. But if it's true that we live in an inverted reality, then that means that if you think about it like this, and by the way, what I'm telling you guys, I did not come up with. Another gentleman came up with this, and I'm not going to mention his name for his identity's sake, and I don't think he wants to be mentioned on this part of YouTube. But as a disclaimer, I didn't come up with this explanation or this theory. But it's a great thing I wanted to bring up because it's a code. The Bible says, and I'm not going to be referencing the Christian mythological aspect of the Bible. I'm not talking about that. That's completely it's made up. The whole story of that. What I'm talking about is the biblical codes that are in there for what I'm about to explain. So, I think it was God or His Son Jesus said, "Fight them with kindness." And what I'm going to explain is why He said that, because it's actually coded. If we live in, let's say, this duality, we live in a duality type of world where, as an example, politics, which is nothing more than complete bullshit, and it's the circus show that they throw for people. We get caught up in that. I get caught up in that, but I'm just it's all the same thing. But we live in this duality world, as above, so below. Two words meaning two, or dual. And what God said, He said, "Fight them with kindness." He was referring to the fact that on one equation of this, theory that we're talking about here, this artificial world, on the above level, think of it as a positive, the plus sign, the positive. Well, whatever happens on that level gets translated or inverted or reflected as a negative on our level. So what God was trying to tell people about this is that if we react negatively to different situations, different circumstances, then it's going to come back as it's going to be a negative, and vice versa. It being reflective on the other side is going to be turned into a positive for them. So you have a positive that gets translated into a negative. You react negatively to that negative, it gets turned into a negative, and then on the other side it gets turned into a positive. So these fuckers that are running the world are getting two positives out of this whole situation. And that's what God was trying to tell people when He said, "Fight them with kindness." He was not talking about necessarily, open arms and have your arms open to anybody, but He was trying to tell people the occultic science and the occultic meaning behind the dual world, the duality, or the as above, so below world that we find ourselves in. That's really what He was trying to tell people. Because, like I said, if there's a positive on one equation, that gets translated into a negative, because you have to balance it. You can't have two positives and then two negatives, because the currency or the flow of energy doesn't work the same. That's why they're inverting it, and that's why everything here is inverted, because it gets translated back into a positive for them and these people that, whatever these things are that are running this place, they get benefited from our negativity. That's what he was trying to tell people. Because if you react negatively to the negative situation, it gets turned into a positive. That's what God was trying to tell people. He said, fight them with kindness. Another example that this gentleman that did this research had brought up is the fact that there used to be this thing where you'd make collect calls and you could transfer. Let's say, for example, if you were calling somebody, you could have the funds transferred to the other line, and they could take the funds. The same principle applies to the same thing I'm trying to explain to you. That's what's going on here. So if you react negatively, you're going to be turning that negative into a positive for the same individuals that are trying to control things here. It's an interesting concept. It's a very interesting concept that is being explained on multi-dimensional levels. There's physics involved in all this stuff that a lot of people just don't seem to understand, and I can understand why that is. But when we're talking about hatred and anger, especially in men, we have to look at this from a different perspective, I think. Because if this holds true, then every single time that we react negatively to a specific situation, then what's going to happen is, it's going to be turned into a positive for these people. All right, that's how people. The manipulation is unfathomable. It's not only manipulation on television or news or movies or music. All those things are incorporated, but it's a energy manipulation. Because you got all these people that you see protest, and they're protesting and, about whatever situation. You have the feminists protesting about that. You got the frickin' SJWs protesting about something else. And people have no idea that the things that are going on that level have nothing to do with anything going on here. On this earth plane. I'm serious. It has nothing to do with that. It's taking place in another dimension of some sort. This is where this as above, so below, stuff comes from. There's another thing is in the movie The Twilight Zone, where, it was, I can't remember the name of the episode, but there was this famous actor, and in one side, his wife he was a drunk, and his wife was kind of a bitch, in this episode of The Twilight Zone, and, he found out that he woke up one day, like he got hit on the head or something. I can't remember the episode. Can't remember watching it fully, but it was explained to me in this way that basically he woke up from a coma, and he found himself that all the original world that he was living in as this actor was actually completely false and fake. And the only way for him, that he, at the very end of the movie, he wakes up, or he has this realization, and he transcends to the other side, and he finds himself that the reality that he used to live in is a completely different one now. And his wife isn't a bitch or a drunk, and he's understanding something from a different level. Twilight, the TV show The Twilight Zone, and all of these other shows, they accurately describe this constant theme is as above, so below, that we live in some kind of dream world, and nothing here is real, And so, again, when we're dealing with this, like I said, what God was trying to tell people in this occultic way was he was trying to tell people the science between how this world and the other dimensions or other world, whatever you want to say. I don't really understand, whether or not it's only two worlds or different dimensions. Regardless, that doesn't really matter. There's something going on here on different levels of different dimensions. But what he was trying to tell people is that if one side, you have a positive on one side, it's going to be turned into a negative. Like I said, when I'm talking about this inverted world that we live in, we got satanic ritual abuse, we have child kidnapping, the pedestophiles and all that crap. You know, this constant satanic inversion. Everything here is inverted, you know, and it comes to show itself, you know, especially with the genders. You know, the genders are being affected very much in the same way. We see women now being in place and portrayed in positions where man would be placed. You know, all the action movies now, they have the woman being in the position of the man's role. It's this flip flop. It's this inversion. You know, and I think that it has to do with something much greater than the surface level bullshit. Because everybody gets, you know, the thing about all this, when you start studying about this kind of stuff, you realize that there's much more going on to the picture than just meets the eye. You know, that's why they call the occult, because it's hidden. It's hidden in plain sight. You just have to have the right knowledge to be able to decipher what that is. You want to equate that to being Neo in the Matrix when he opens his eyes and sees the world for what it really is. He's shown the world for what it really is. You know, I've reached that point. And it's quite an insane ride when you start to see how the pieces of the puzzle get fit together. You know, so what he was talking, what the saying in the Bible is trying to say is that he's trying to tell people about the occultic science of this dimensional aspect of this world, this dream world, where, like I said, one side is a positive, that gets translated or inverted or reflected to the other world as a negative, because it has to balance itself. But when you react negatively to that negative response, then that negative gets turned into a positive on the other side. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's why he said fight them with kindness, because he's trying to tell people, if you turn that negative into a positive, then that positive gets flipped into a negative on the other side, and they get the repercussions for that. And so what does that have to do with, you know, how can you apply that? Well, we can't fight, you know, let's just talk about it from the perspective of a man going your own way. We all know that there is an agenda going on where women are being constantly put into positions above man and being replaced as man. It has to do with this inverted reality that we live in. You know, feminism is just a tool being used. It's not the actual. Feminism is not the actual. It's not the only thing that is being used to manipulate the sexes. It's just one aspect of it. But what it's doing is it's inverting the roles. It's flip-flopping, and we see it today. We see women fucking acting like men, dressing like men, wanting to be men, you know, and we raise girls to grow up to be these unrealistic, artificial, and fake senses of people, and we wonder why things are so fucked up. We're raising women to become men because things here are inverted. Because what's really going on has nothing to do with what's going on here. This is where I said this, as above, so below. There's another realm that whether you want to call it different dimension, hyperdimensional physics, it's all the same thing. It all ties in. But there is something else going on here that is causing this inversion, I believe. You know, that TV show, The Twilight Zone, you know, there's so much truth into that if you have the eyes to see it, of what's going on this earth. You see, like I said, I do research into the occult, you know, because always know that there's something more going on to all this. But what you have, the problem is that people are spiritually dead. They cannot imagine a situation where just maybe the things that are being influenced, the things that influence us to make the decisions that we make, and the things and places we go, and the things that we do, the things that we buy, that just maybe those things are being controlled from another dimension. That's hard for people to understand because they just, like I said, people on here in Earth, in the United States, just however you want to call whatever this location is, in this below world, things are inverted. So this theme runs constant, whether it be gender, whether it be governmental institutions. They say one thing and do the other. Let me just give you a little insight. When you look at the colors that the political parties use, they use red and blue. Red and blue is symbolic of duality, because you can only go either one way or the other. Regardless of which way you take, you still go down the same path, which is a symbolic way of saying it doesn't matter where you go, you're still going to be part of the system. And you see these people that get so caught up in politics, they have no clue what is going on. How I could try to explain this stuff to people, it would take me a while, but I'm trying my best to try to explain to people that it's the same thing. So that's why they use red and blue. The red and blue is a color code. It's symbolically a color code for duality. Now that duality goes on to infinitum. So to sum it up, when we're looking at the genders, it has to do with the inversion of the natural order of how, I guess how things are supposed to work. We hear about this whole traditional conservative, whatever term you want to. I don't keep up with fucking terms. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. But people typically most people want to have a conservative, lifestyle, because it seems to be the natural order of things. And I know people are going to disagree with that, but you're just going to have to listen to me, because I'm not here to choose one side or the other. I'm here to find the truth wherever that might lead me. I'm not here to, choose one more favorable way to look at something versus the other, because that's, again, duality. But this is why we see the feminists, and the people that protest these gender politics, is that the agenda behind it is much more sadistic. I don't know if that's even the right word to say it. It's much more demented than people can really understand, beyond just a bunch of crazy women going around and hating people. So again, when he said fight them with kindness, you have to understand that you cannot use the same tactics that they're using against us, because we've been taught as men, somebody throws shit at you, then you throw shit back at them, right? Self-defense. But again, you have to understand that there's another dimensional aspect to our decisions and our things that we do while we're here, and that the effects that it has, that the things that we have here, because everything is flip-flopped and reversed. It's not going to be the same way. That's why every single time you see these people that go out and they protest, it only gets worse. Because that is the purpose. That's the intentional purpose for that. Is for the reaction. It's all for the reaction. Because when you have a reaction, you create energy. And they're using that energy to manipulate people on a hyperdimensional level. And I know that this is hard to understand. And I know that it sounds far out there, but you have to understand that there's much more going on here. When you start, like I said, when you start studying into this stuff, you start to see that the pieces of the puzzle start to fit together in a way that you really couldn't really imagine them to be. And it's the analogy I use that, we're in the Matrix, we're in the dream world. This is where you hear the term sheeple. People are asleep, they're not awake. You know, it's because we live in a dream world. None of this is real. Everything here is fake. That's very difficult for people to comprehend. You know, because they've never been told about that. And if you don't have the right information to understand, you're never going to. And that's why people will remain in this prison, you know, this prison planet, because as Morpheus said to Neo, it is a prison for your mind. Because everything here is inverted, and it is a reflection of something else going on, the real you. I believe that that is the case in a lot of ways. You know, and I'm going to give you another example of this. If you look in the movie The Matrix, when Neo sits down and meets Morpheus for the first time, in the scene where he's like, either you take the red pill or the blue pill. When you go back and watch that movie, and look at his sunglasses. You know, Morpheus' sunglasses are reflective. When you look into his sunglasses, there's two of Neo. On the red side, there's an image of Neo, and on the blue side, there's a reflection of Neo. That's what I'm talking about. It's the as above, so below. It's the duality. It's the extra dimensional aspect to our existence here. That's what that scene was trying to convey to people. Go back and look at it. His sunglasses were reflecting two versions of Neo in each eye. Because there's another aspect, there's another side. And when he puts his hand through the mirror-looking thing, or that silver, whatever that is, he's going through to the other side. You know, there's another saying that says, well, if you can, you know, people go, well, I'm going to dig my way, you're going to dig so far down, you're going to reach China. How the fuck would you reach China by digging down? Because it comes out the other side. Because it's a mirror reflection. So anyways, to sum this up, when we're talking about the gender politics, because I know that that's a predominantly discussed topic amongst this side of YouTube, we have to understand that it's the inversion. It's the reflection of this duality that we find ourselves living in this world. The Matrix. Because it is a dream world. You know that thoughts have the ability to create reality. You know, scientists have done multiple experiments with people using their thoughts to move objects and things of that nature. It's been done. We're more powerful than we think we are. Do we have that kind of power to do so? No, I don't think so, but I know that it's possible. You know, and we don't have all that kind of stuff in it. That's a whole nother thing. But when you see people, you have to understand with men, you know, as us with men, we get angry and we hate these feminists because it's a personal thing, because we've been affected by women to some degree or another. We've been affected by the inversion of this crap to some degree or another. Some of us have been put through the chopping block. Some of us have been put through the blender, and some of us have been diced and minced. Either way, we're all screwed up. We've all been affected by it. But when you're thinking about this with what God said, He said, fight them with kindness. He's talking about the occultic science of duality. Because on one side you have a positive, the other side you have the reflection, which is the negative. If you take that negative and react negatively to that negative, it gets turned into a positive on the other side. So he's trying to tell people, look, if you want to fight energy with energy, you can't use the same tactics. You can't react negatively to a negative. You have to react positively because it gets flipped to a negative. That's why these people that run shit are getting so much. They're being able to control us, and they're getting, you know, they're getting double positive. They're getting double reward for what they're doing because people don't understand this. And I'll just say this, that You know, a lot of the Sandy Hook shooting is the exact same thing. They fucking sent those kids some other fucking place. That's what happened. They sent them out of here. Because there were satanic rituals involved. That's why they do this stuff. That's why they do it. Why else would they do that? I mean, that's all. I'm going to save that for another video, because that's a bit heavy for people, I think, but I understand what they're trying to say. You get my drift. But anyways, I wanted to bring that up because I know that it goes against everything that as men that we've been taught. But when we're looking at how we're going to dig ourselves out of the sewer, out of this hell, sewer meaning hell, underworld, however you want to call it. That's why, again, why in the movie Matrix, when he gets unplugged from those things and he gets sucked down into that thing, he winds up going through a sewer. That's a sewer pipe that he's going through. And he winds himself in the sewer, which is out of the dream world state, because he got unplugged. So in order for us to get out of the sewer, or even begin to get into the sewer, because most people that you see out here protesting about politics or gender or all this bullshit, they haven't even got it in the sewer yet. They're not even starting to crawl through the fucking sewer. They haven't even breached the sewer yet. Like that movie Shawshank Redemption. This gentleman that I'm talking about that does this research, he referenced this is the Shawshank Redemption. Redemption meaning, to redeem. I forgot how he described it. But that guy crawled over 5 football fields through shit. That's what we have to do in finding out what the hell all this crap is all about. The people that are still caught up in the Matrix haven't even begun. They haven't gotten even in the sewer yet. Do you see what I'm saying? We have to learn how to think differently about all of this. And so when I'm talking about these occultic philosophies, it's because there's another aspect to all of this. That's the whole point of my video here, talking about this as above, so below. And what God said, fight them with kindness, because he's referring to this, this inversion. That everything that happens on that other side is going to come back the exact flip-flopped way, the inverted way on this side. That's why everything's so fucked up here. But if we take that inverted side and we react inverted or perverted, it's the same sense of the way of using it. Everything here is perverted. We had perverted everything here. Everything here is perverted. Everybody. Then it's just being reflected on the other side. So if a negative on our end, we're the negative, just using the symbol to get people to have a better idea in their mind. If that negative is us, then if we react negatively, then the negative is just going to get turned into a positive. So do you see how these people are able to manipulate us on a cosmic level, interdimensional level? It makes you stop and wonder, does all of this garbage about feminists and gender politics and all this frickin', does it really matter whether or not a fucking woman is into pair bonding or mating strategy, or all these terms that we use? Does that even matter when we're discussing something of this caliber? In my opinion, it doesn't. That's why I don't really talk about it anymore. And it's also because why I don't make videos about raging or anger towards the situation that is going on, because I know that it is because everything here is inverted. So we have to learn that if you're gonna fight this battle against whether the gender, the politics, or the government, or any unfairness amongst any of those governmental, political, or private or public or personal institutions, you can't use the same tactics that they're using against us. If there's fucking feminists ranting and raving saying we hate men this and we hate men that, and then you go back and say, well, we hate women and we hate this. Look, I get your anger and I get your frustration. But that's the same kind of mentality that the people that are protesting politics right now are doing. And because of that, there's rioting happening. People are beating people up, and people are losing their minds. Because it's for your reaction. Do you understand? It is for your reaction. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire. The crossing point is whether or not you can understand that. And some guys, they just don't want to do it. I'm here to seek the truth. I'm not here to lie to people. I'm here to try to explain this to people the best way I can. Because it's a constant learning process. It's a big deal. But we can't fight fire with fire. Fire with fire, meaning negative against a negative. Negative is red, meaning fire. Blue is positive, meaning water. You fight positive with negative because it's just symbology. That's all I can say. It's just symbology. So anyways, I'm going to wrap this up. I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that. And, one other thing, Nissan is another example of this. When you look at the car company logo, Nissan, you have a circle with a little bar through it that says Nissan. Well, think about it like that. On the top is the above, and the bottom is the below. As above, so below. Positive, negative. When you take a positive, put the positive on the top and the negative at the bottom. Your reaction is the negative that is coming down to this plane. Think about it like hyperdimensional physics. And then that negative will be the exact reflection on the other end. And that's the best way I know how to describe it. I know that it can be confusing. But again, we have to learn how to think differently.